morning, Julie. Thank you so much for sharing some time. We're recording during All-Star Weekend, but I know we'll be sharing this during Women's History Month, and I am so thrilled to be chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining this morning.
Ariana, thank you for having me this morning. It is a thrill to get to talk with you. One of our Kelley graduates doing great things in the city. I'm really proud and impressed of what you do, and so excited to be here with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know if you will remember, but I got a hand-signed note from you after I was one of IBJ's 20 in their 20s. And Brenda also shared that you are a Women of Influence nominated by IBJ. So congratulations continuously to you. And I'm truly so excited. I've been actually wanting to talk to you for a while. So when Brenda mentioned it, I was immediately like, yes, please, as soon as it's available. I am so thrilled. So thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure to be here. And yes, congratulations on your 20 under 20. The IBJ does a nice job of recognizing the people that are making a difference in the community. And certainly it's amazing for people, still in that first part of their careers that already have had an impact. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I don't know if you felt this way after you were nominated, but getting to connect with your other nominees, I thought was so cool. I ended up getting coffee and drinks with a lot of the other like developing leaders nominated in that sector. And it was so cool. And especially getting to work in a space with other women, I feel like I got to meet women who were like in roles that I hope to be in one day, just because the 20s is such a range of like where we are in our careers, which is
Right,
really cool.
right.
And it kind of is inspiring a little bit of my questions that I've lined up for this morning. So I'm going to jump right in here. But how do you think women are making history in business?
Well, it's an exciting time for women in business right now. We have come a long way, right? So you look at the most recent census data that tells us that 43% of small businesses are now started by women. That's a pretty impressive number. Women are more likely to start a business with 0 employees than men are, which means they're willing to go out there and get started on their own without a big group behind them. We also know that at the other end of large businesses, that there are more women in leadership of organizations, that board of directors are just over 30% women now. I saw one analysis that said by 2030 that we would have gender parity in board of directors in large corporations. So women are making history and impact in business every day. Now, it's not all great news. Those startups, women-owned startups, have more trouble attracting funding. And, gender parity is still a ways away. But there's also great organizations that are really focused on making sure that women-owned business do get that funding and focusing on those sort of initiatives. So it's an exciting time to realize that our world needs all people to be involved and jump in. And innovation comes from allowing all those voices. And I think we're seeing that happen.
That's really interesting that you touched on how many, if you will, solo entrepreneurs are women and how often men kind of go into it with others. I had never really thought about that, but I think back to, I mean, I think about meeting women in networking spaces who have their own businesses in like those entrepreneurial settings, and how many of us are like asking one another, like, how many are on your team? And it's like, oh, it's me. But hopefully growing soon. And I look at some more male startups, and they are with like a friend or with a couple of friends. I one of my best friends, somebody that she was involved with, he and like 4 friends all started a podcast.
Mhm.
And that's a really interesting thing that I've never noticed. And I also wonder, I've read more, especially as I've gotten older, and we like bought a house. And just like as your seasons of life change, I feel like you start to notice different parallels in different spaces. And there was this article I read forever ago, but it talked about the mental burden of like a household. And I think that it translates a lot into how women lead businesses, because we're able to be thinking about not only like what needs to be done today, but what needs to be done tomorrow and next week, and kind of that like bigger picture plan where we don't necessarily need to be given a list of things to do, but we're kind of already thinking about that project management and how one task needs something else to be done. And so I've loved seeing more women step into those leadership roles because we have that mindset, and because we also, I think, come to those leadership positions from a empathetic, open-minded place where we can facilitate criticism not only for our teams but for ourselves, and kind of create more of that cultivated environment. So I don't know, that was just like a whole stream of thought there, but I had no idea that there were more women who started businesses on their own, and that's
Right.
just incredible.
That number is rising. And I think, to your point about, it's really interesting that you have the anecdotal evidence of what that is telling us, that you've been seeing that in your role. I think there's flexibility
Mhm.
that women seek because of the various roles that they play in society. I'm the product of a woman who started her own business, and it was because she needed that flexibility in
Mhm.
her life. And so I think it will be interesting to study what that looks like in the future, and how it continues to impact our economy.
Mhm. I agree, and I especially think it's this really exciting time of not only women, but people having the conversation of wanting to build a life that they get to live and not only working to live, and making their career something that lives alongside their day-to-day life. And I'm so excited to continue seeing more entrepreneurial spirits come up and work together and collaborate in different ways. And you talked about roles, and I know that you recently became a vice dean just a year and a couple months ago, isn't that right?
It was July 23, so not even a year yet. Yes.
So exciting. So as you've stepped into this role, how do you feel you're making history for the students that you have impact on?
Well, it's an exciting time to be at Indiana University. We have our first female president of the university, Pamela Whitten,
Mhm,
who is making a big impact, and she's an amazing role model for all of our students. Just this week, we've added our inaugural Indiana University Indianapolis Chancellor, Latha Ramchan, and she is the first woman in that role. So I am thrilled to be on a campus where, the campus leader is a female, the president of the university is a female, and that I am able to lead Kelley School Indianapolis as the first woman to lead Indianapolis Kelley School. And I think what it just shows you is that the world is changing in a lot of positive
mhm,
ways. That there are opportunities to step into leadership roles, and I do love seeing all of the students that um, see that as a change and an opportunity for whatever sort of places they come from.
mhm,
I think that there's a special connection with women who see me in that role. I wear red a lot, so they comment on my red, and it allows them to think of a different sphere.
mhm.
And maybe we connect in a different way. Maybe there's more comfort level there. But I hope that it's inspiring people, whatever their goal is, whatever color they want to wear, or however they want to dress, that there's space for them. I look different than the person who was here before me, and it's okay if they look different than the person that they will be following.
Yeah, that's such a good point, and especially for young students trying to figure out what they want their identity to be in their career and how they present, because I feel I'm always dating myself whenever I say, like, back when I was in school, like, several years ago now. I used to say a few years, and I'm realizing it's been more than a few or a couple years, but it was a lot of everyone was wearing very similar things. It was a lot of black suits, maybe dark gray if someone was feeling really adventurous. And I just, as somebody who loves color, I say that wearing all black today, but someone who normally loves wearing color, and I normally add more color to like my eyeshadows and lipstick even, to see somebody in a leadership role who is someone on campus regularly, interacting with students, showing up as your full self, especially in clothing and fashion and things that you are able to say, like, this is a part of who I am, but that doesn't mean you take me any less seriously. That is such an impact on its own. Is that something that was a conscious decision for you? Because I know that there's like a lot of like fashion and perception and like especially women and like what we wear in the workplace. But was that a conscious decision for you to make of what you were choosing to wear on campus for other young women in business to see?
I do think that it's wonderful to be at the point in my career where I can think about, how do I want to present myself in a way that is truly me? I love clothes and fashion too. And there was a time that I was more conservative in thinking about, how I blended in. I started my career before I went to law school at a CPA/consulting firm,
Mhm.
and it was very conservative back then. So I remember one of the men wore a pink button down with his dark suit, and he was chastised in front of everyone for wearing a pink button down, which was very conservative at but so it's come a long way. And I do think that we need to think about being professional in professional settings, but that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that being professional doesn't mean being who you are and showing your own flair. And I think being a professional means being able to put that together. You can have flair that looks very professional and gives you the sort of presence that you need to command a room.
Yes, I love that. And I think a lot of it also comes from within because you can have whatever checklist of clothes, but if they're wearing you, then you're still not gonna feel like in full control of yourself, and I think, especially with organizations like Women in Business on campus, being able to be around people who are constantly building you up and looking to see you succeed is so, so key. I was talking with a friend, and I know that the organizations have shifted and changed since we were on campus, but I think it's incredible to still see such a community, whether like it's a different name now or whatever it is, but to find that community on campus is so incredible. And like finding people who are in your corner that make you feel like you can wear that pink button up under your suit and you won't care if you're chastised for it.
It does make a world of difference. And, those sort of networking opportunities are such an important part of your school experience, right?
Mhm.
Whether that's undergrad or graduate school, you need to find those communities because that network is going to be the network you go back to your entire career. It expands and grows and changes in important ways, but it's great to build it early and keep those connections. And you're great at doing that. So I know that you'll continue to keep those networks moving.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I remember in, I think it was like our X 103 class or something, we were encouraged to add each other on LinkedIn. And so we were all we felt so funny doing it because we're like, we're not the ones who are going to give each other jobs. Like we're all trying to get jobs right now. But truly, your peer network is something that I have gone back to time and time again, especially as I've had friends change roles, change fields, change cities, and like enter new local economies. And I know that it's been so interesting to hear about how cities will talk to each other as they plan events or as they are taking on a new citywide project. And being able to learn from one another and then also still have those connections, it's so key. And understanding the different roles we're all able to play in sharing knowledge and helping to move the economy forward in impactful ways. What role do women in business play on the local level and in the greater economy?
I have know so many sort of impressive, powerful women in the greater Indianapolis area, in the state, and then, of course, more broadly. And we touched on it a little bit earlier, but it's certainly worth um, diving down into some more. And that is, the best innovation comes from bringing in a lot of perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
So inclusivity breeds that innovation and connection and new ideas, and bringing women into that discussion who have a really particular viewpoint on many things that impact the economy. One of them being that the majority of consumers are women. So if you're speaking to people who are spending the money, you need to have the voice of those people who relate to that experience, right? Mm-hmm. So it is the fact that we have moved forward on more women in leadership at various roles in business means that they're also getting that perspective of the drivers of consumer purchases and the people who think through maybe family responsibilities in a different way, and the people who maybe are more risk takers and start a business on their own without being involved with lots of friends. So it is a ripple effect on the larger economy by bringing in all those voices and really ratcheting up what we can do. And we're in a world where we have to think through a lot of important information and ideas and how we're going to shape the future with new technology. Mm-hmm. And all the voices need to be heard in that. And women in particular need to make sure they have their voice and perspective heard.
100%. I listened to a podcast probably like last year when Taylor Swift and Beyonce's tours were literally changing economies for weeks at a time just because of how many people were traveling and doing all these different things. And it's really interesting because I've sat on it a little bit and really thought about it. And the podcast was saying that right now, or last year, was the biggest she economy they'd ever seen because of Barbie, because of Taylor, because of Beyonce, and all these different things that were very driven by women purchasing different things and leading the buying trends in that way. And I think back to watching Mad Men, where it's this room of like men picking out advertisements for hosiery or whatever, things that they don't use. Mm-hmm. And seeing this huge transformation to now. And I'm even in businesses, on boards for nonprofits, and seeing kind of what you said, like more representation of who's being served in those decision-making spaces. And I got to interview and sit down with Marla Taylor, and that is their bread and butter of what they do, of championing voices to be heard before decisions are made. And I think that, again, and I don't want to just say like women are better, but I think we have all of these innate tools where we are able to create spaces for listening and create spaces for more conversation. And there are so many seats being brought up to tables right now that I think I wholeheartedly agree with you that women are playing this huge role in the economy as we are stepping into these spaces of creating the trends, buying them, and then also asking more people what they want to see like available for themselves. And I love that you brought in tech too, because women in tech, women in STEM, it's such a growing field. It's such a growing community. And as AI and tech overall is being integrated into, I feel like every field, every week, there's a new article about how tech is being redesigned and rethought and brought into these different spaces. It's amazing to have that diversity of thought and how we can transform the use of one thing for something else.
Right. It is a place where tech is an area in particular where all users' voices need to be heard. I love that you use the Mad Men reference because there's a lot of people who think that a lot of that tech is being developed by the sort of the male voice being driven by it, but there's a lot of women's voices being included now and should be. Mm-hmm. I think that the changes we've seen, you talked about last year with Taylor Swift and Beyonce and Barbie movie. When you look at the arc of history, there's been a huge progress in a relatively short amount of time.
Yes.
So my area of study is pregnancy discrimination, my first area of research. And if you think about the fact that the Pregnancy Discrimination Amendment to Title VII passed in 1978. So everyone out there in the world who is over the age of 46, and I know that sounds old to a lot of people, but is not old. There's lots of people over the age of 46 in our
Yes.
world. Their mom could have been fired from their job for getting pregnant with them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really short arc of history where we go from, if you get pregnant and you can't be guaranteed your job is still there, to where we are today. And I think we need to celebrate that. Society has advanced in important ways. Is it perfect? By no means. Should it be better? Absolutely. But, if you look at the arc of history, it's bending in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. I did not realize that that bill had only been passed, honestly, that recently. My husband's mom, she had talked about she was one of two women in her office. She worked at an ad agency, and when she had her first son, that they had no protocol. They were like, "Okay, now what?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "I had to walk them through, like, expectations and, like, maternity leave and all these different things." And I think again, just talking about how women are bringing more seats to the table, and this will kind of lead into my next question, but I have been so in awe, and I have not done anything on my part, and I'm lacking in that space, but it has been really cool to read and see women champion for more rights and rest after giving birth, but they've also been championing for people who adopt and, like, just paternal time off and parental time off as more of a blanket, because starting a family and again, finding that balance of, like, living life while, like, pursuing your dream career and all these different things, like, they go hand in hand, and being able to be in a place in your career and feel like you can continue other areas of your life without having to stress about that, is so incredible. And so I've loved seeing more job postings being like, there's parental leave period provided, and that just wouldn't have happened without women saying, like, this is what we need, this is what we want, and this is why it's fair and, like, why you should do it.
Absolutely. And the fact that it is valued by both men and women now is really important, because it's not just women seeking to have, a better balance. It's to your point that, everyone is expecting it. That's how they want to live their life now. And I think it's a lot of factors that went into this. I think, the pandemic obviously impacted the way we work and live. Um, but now that it is a shared value, then we know that we will get some traction there.
Yes, agreed. Um, Agreed. It's interesting, and I feel like that's a whole another deep dive we could go into, but, for the sake of time today, I'm going to lead us into our next one. So talking about women bringing seats to the table and making space for others to join us, how do you think women who are leading can inspire and develop our incoming leaders?
Well, this is something I think a lot about. One of my roles here at the Kelley School is I'm the executive and academic director of the Tobias Leadership Center. And so we talk about leadership, think about leadership, and how to train people as leaders. And yes, I do think training is involved in it, that people aren't born or naturally as leaders or not. I think that you have to develop your skill sets as leaders. And how to make sure that once they're in a leadership role, they bring others along as leaders. So it's really important to mentor and develop new leaders, and to think about how, if you're in a position of leadership, you will be able to make sure that that organization or group or community
Mhm.
continues to have good leadership. So I think it's a lot of things, not just inspiration, but really doing the work of sitting down and mentoring people and answering questions, of sharing good ideas from a book or a podcast or an article that they read, of holding up examples of people who do it well and celebrating those examples. It's a really important aspect of advancing in our business organizations, our community organizations, and our larger, broader society to bring through those leadership skills.
Mhm. I think shared knowledge too is something that people are sometimes hesitant or they don't even realize is such a tool that they can be sharing to develop those around them. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and they were talking about how nobody who's leading something or starting a business or whatever it may be, nobody ever wants to say that they're new at it. They want to be seen from this like point of expertise because they're in leadership, and how it can open so many more doors when you're like, okay, so like I don't know everything, and but here's something that I've learned, and leaning into the fact that we all say we want to be sponges for life, learning and consuming and growing in our understanding, but I there's this interesting like twist of humility where some people don't want to admit that like once you're in a position, but when you do, it creates such an environment where people are like, oh, my leader is learning, I am continuing to learn, and like we're learning together and sharing that space for it. So I have been so in awe of the Tobias Center and seeing more people step into those roles and be fellows. I am that is incredible, and I love getting to learn more about how you are actively in roles where you are developing leaders and being able to train people and honing those skills, because you are so right. I think people say that you are a born leader, and I think that we can have attributes, that come naturally to us, but to fine tune them and to work those different skills is so key to being able to actually help others.
So interesting you should say that, because we just had a presentation on leadership traits yesterday, and you touched on several of them. Humility is a really important one, to be able to say, I'm not coming in here with the answers, because if you come in presenting like you have all the answers, no one's going to share their ideas with you. And
Mhm.
then that's a loss for everybody in the organization. But also emotional intelligence, to understand how to lead with understanding the room and the needs at the present time, whether you should. There are times when you have to project confidence and I've got this. Don't panic, right? So to be able to know when those times happen, and then sort of emotional stability, not hitting the high and low every day, but knowing that there's going to be a certain just ability to maintain calm within the leadership challenges you encounter. So there are leadership traits, but then also the ability to beef up those traits and make sure that you can bring them to your best ability to exercise them.
Mhm. So, yes, very, very true, and, um, I think I might ask you a little bit more about that in our dig deeper, because I am so interested in hearing about the honing of it. So, you're at the Tobias Center, you're also at Kelley, and in what ways do you feel like Kelley faculty and education are preparing young women in business?
Well, I'm really proud of the work that we do here at Kelley, and we have an amazing faculty, as you know, who work very directly with our students here at Indy. And we, I like to think about the way we provide a skill set,
Mhm,
because you need the skill set, whether you're going to start your own business or participate in a larger business or work for a community or organization on a board or um, a nonprofit. Understanding basic financial statements, for instance, is
mhm,
a really important skill set.
mhm,
And so you get those initial skill sets. But the thing that we provide at Kelley, which I think is so equally important to the basic skill sets, is the teamwork aspects. Obviously, I-Corps is sort of a hallmark of a Kelley education, and there's a lot of teamwork aspects that go in there. The leadership, the understanding, cross-cultural challenges to get a team to work together well. All of that is important to be successful in business. And then you have to take that to the other of how do we apply this? So the case competitions. In being in Indianapolis, we have this huge advantage of being able to have our students participate in internships while they're taking their courses and marrying that experience of putting it into action and while that you're learning about the skills as well. And then, faculty who will help walk them through that experience so they don't have to do that separate from their school. We have staff that advises how to work with the networking of clubs and other organizations on campus. So I just am really impressed with faculty and staff and the way they become very involved with helping all of our students develop the skill sets they need. Again, not just for a business career, but for their life career, to be able to be an asset to whatever organization and their own personal financial and other economic empowerment interests.
Yes, I think you touched on so many different aspects that I think of fondly and sometimes with mm, more mashed potatoes and Cheeto nights than I would like to admit. I-Corps. um, but I love, because I think back, and the question I get the most often, especially in starting a business, is how did you know what to outsource? And how did you know, when to step back from different things? Or how do you do it all? And I think that all of them kind of have the same answer because I was a marketing major, and so I took my 3 accounting classes. I did finance and I-Corps, but it was not something I ever wanted to take up a lot of my headspace because I knew that it wasn't my strength, and I knew where my strengths were. And I feel like especially through I-Corps, and again, I think this is some of the humility that you have to bring to the table when you start a business, when you lead in different settings. And as soon as we were at a point where I could get somebody hourly or even quarterly, whatever, to do our books, that was the first thing I did because I knew that I would spend more time doing that when I should be spending more of my time doing business development for more rather than just having my nose down and then still needing to find someone to check it anyways because I didn't feel super I mean, I felt confident enough because of my education and my background. I had books, and when I hired an accountant, I was able to hand it over to her with a bow. I was like, "This is in a great spot. I just don't want to do it anymore because I know that my strengths lie elsewhere." And I think that Kelley truly has done such an awesome job in those settings because all of those groups too, and I don't know what algorithm faculty uses to put us in different groups, but being able to work with other people who don't think like you, bring these different perspectives, and then also having all these different skill sets together so that way we can confidently do the parts that we feel great about and then bringing it together in perfect harmony is such a great feeling. And you talk about case study competitions. I remember my group in freshman year, we won the first one that we had, and that was such an amazing feeling. I had it on my apartment fridge forever that we won it because it was you go into this big chapter of your life and you're to some degree making a decision that will kind of set you on a path for the rest of your life. Of course, you can change majors and do all these different things, but to be in a space where you know you have resources, you have professors who want to share their time with you, you have other people surrounding you that are also energized and excited to be there. It's such a great setup for building yourself, exploring your different interests, and also finding what you're really great at and being able to leave feeling confident about it.
I think that's such an important part of the college experience. Education is an investment,
Mhm.
and use that time to truly invest in yourself by making sure you learn all the different possibilities. You don't have to come in with a single idea of what's in front of me. I don't know if you knew marketing would be your passion from the beginning or not. I certainly never thought I was going to be a professor at a business school, but you able to learn all the different opportunities that are out there. And if you don't explore that,
Mhm.
uh, you might miss out on something that you could be really good at, or an opportunity you really did not know existed that now you know about. One of our co-majors is the real estate that you pair with another major. And lots of people are finding, oh, real estate is an industry I didn't know it encompassed all of this.
Mhm.
And so just those opportunities to keep exploring is so important, and really part of the investment that you make when you go to higher education.
Mhm. Truly, and as you said, it's a path, it's a journey, and I think it's so beautiful because it's our own, and it can look however you want it or you need it to look depending on where you wanna go, and I am so thrilled and happy and excited to know that women like you are at the helm of it, steering and creating pathways for so many young minds that have questions, that have dreams, and I'm so thankful for you. So thank you, Julie, again so much for joining, and thank you for everything that you're doing on campus. You're making waves, and I know you see some of them, but I also know there's a lot of ripples that you might not be seeing yet, and we're lucky to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And we're just thrilled to have you as one of our proud Kelley graduates, because you too are making waves and ripples as well that you might not see. So, congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate it, and if you are interested, you can join us on our Patreon where we will be digging deeper with Julie here in a minute. So we'll see you soon.